Hello, and welcome to Off the Rip, a little bit early because, well, Nameless said so, and that's what happens because we're sitting here talking Thanksgiving dinner, and that is we're talking about to everybody. Hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving and a happy holiday to you guys as we're getting ready for Cyber Monday and beyond. Nameless just cooked up a full-on feast that I'm not gonna lie, I'm super jealous about. You have to share it to people.
Dude, it was fire. I made stuffing, baked mac and cheese, potato salad, turkey. I think that's it.
How
Made
nervous were
mashed
you?
potatoes.
I was about to ask, that was my follow-up question.
So like a month ago, I knew I was doing it, right? So I started to look up recipes, and I had them like all on the YouTube thing on my phone, and then like I had them saved, and I'm like, all right, the week before, I'll like test make some of it, at home, like small batches and stuff. I just didn't do any of it. I was just lazy. So then the night before, I was like terrified, and I made a couple mistakes. So I got there on Tuesday, and I grocery shopped on Wednesday. So like I bought everything on Wednesday. And
Yeah.
here is the scary thing, dude. So when you buy like a turkey, like a 13-pound turkey, that's what I got, which isn't like massive, it's decent size, but you need 48 hours to like unthaw it, right? That's how long you need to unthaw a turkey, and it was completely frozen.
Mhm.
So I thawed it out for 24 hours, and I had to cook it the next day. So I started at noon, and
Did you deep
luckily,
fry or like how'd you cook it?
Yeah, that's what I was
No,
like asking.
I roasted it.
Okay.
But like, here's the thing, like, so I thought it was gonna come out bad because like I had to thaw it out a little bit in the oven. So I put it in there for 2 hours, and apparently, and this is like a life hack, if you don't thaw your turkey out fully and you roast it a little bit and like to thaw it out, it like ends up being juicier at the end. So
Makes
I actually
sense.
got blessed by
All
not
right.
thawing it out fully. So I put it in there for 2 hours. I took it out, and then I took like the little packet of the gizzards or whatever the fuck those things are called out, and it just looked disgusting. And I'm like, all right, guys, I might have to go buy a rotisserie chicken tonight. I don't know.
Wait, but it turned out all right?
Yeah, and then at the end,
Good.
3 hours later, I put some butter and stuff on it throughout. Took it out. It was perfect. Well, I was so happy.
Hell
'cause
yeah,
I
dude.
was so
That's
worried.
awesome.
How many people
Yeah.
were you cooking for? Because you were back home in Chicago, yeah?
Yeah, I was cooking for my aunt, uncle, and my 2 cousins. So it wasn't like a big feast, but it was enough. We had leftovers for like a day and a half, but we ate everything. So that made me pretty
I've been
happy.
eating leftovers for days. It's been the best.
Yeah.
What did you do, Katie?
So we do something called Orphan Thanksgiving, where any of our like coworkers or my husband's coworkers or friends who like either can't go home or maybe don't have a home to go to or don't have any plans for Thanksgiving, they all come over to our house and we do kind of a big Orphan Thanksgiving. So everyone usually brings sides, but we'll cook everything here. And Chris deep fries the turkey every year, which did
Oh, wow, that's
result
amazing.
2 years ago in third-degree burns, but he's gotten better at it now.
Big learning
But
lesson,
yeah,
I'm sure.
we had like 30-something people over, but yeah, it's a good time. It's
Dang.
relaxed, and yeah, it's fun because there's a lot of people who just don't have anything to do, so we
Yeah,
love
that's
them,
amazing.
have
Yeah,
them
that's
over
super
and hang
cool.
out.
30
That's
people
super
give
cool.
me anxiety.
Dude, same.
Yeah, well, there was a couple times where I was like, I'm gonna go upstairs and hang out with Master Chief for a little bit and like decompress.
So
you made 1 turkey or 2 or what?
Yeah, so it was turkey, but then he also had 2 geese that he had been shot prior on a hunting trip.
He's a
So
beast.
yeah, it was 2 geese, it was the turkey, and it was like a whole bunch of sides, like 8 bajillion sides.
Dang. Did you
Okay,
cook anything?
Fuck no, I can't. Sorry, excuse the language. I can't cook at all.
Katie, here's the thing
So-
about cooking, and I've learned this. It's literally just following instructions.
it absolutely is like following
Oh, no,
instructions.
but you don't understand. It'll be like chop the onions, and I'm like, well, chop them how?
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
you're
mince
one of
them,
those.
dice them. Like I overthink it so hard that I'm just like, Chris, you do it. I'll do the dishes. You cook the food. Like that's how we do
The
it.
hardest thing is the cleaning, and you prefer to do that? You're crazy.
You are crazy.
Yeah, well, okay, because I'm intelligent enough to wash plates, but not to cook food.
I think you're
That's where I
underestimating
go.
yourself. But it's
You know
funny
what?
because
It might be. Go ahead.
is that you had a roast turkey, and then Katie, you had a deep fried. My dad smokes his turkeys.
Ooh.
If you've
Smokes them?
never done
Like in
smoked
a
turkey,
smoker?
like in a smoker for like a day and a
Yeah.
half, it's awesome. It was so good.
That sounds good. That sounds
So
really good,
so good. I'd never experienced before. He got when we moved to North Carolina because they were all Chicago based up until about 7 years ago. And as soon as they came out to North Carolina, my dad's like, "We're in smoke country. I'm gonna learn how to smoke." And that was like one of the first things he did. And he's gotten to the point where it's like just perfection now. It's
That probably takes a long
insane.
ass time, huh?
Yeah, day and a
Yeah.
half.
Well, and you got to monitor it the entire time. Chris tries to smoke stuff, and he always gets so frustrated when he's doing it.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. I don't know how it all works. It's all a mystery and a science, but hopefully all you guys out there also had a wonderful holiday, and hopefully you didn't bust your banks too badly over the Cyber Weekend. Did you guys shop at all? I don't know about you, but I've spent about $250. Just ill-advised.
I did just buy a laptop, Chris, like an hour ago. So, yes, it's been expensive, but it's all like necessary things.
Fair enough.
So,
Yeah, I
it's
bought
alright.
stuff, but I got no cyber deals. I
Wait,
bought
really?
like
Wait,
I got
what?
because I haven't been home, so I went on Amazon and I bought like bathroom tissue, like face wash, and like athletic shorts, and none of them were deals. Oh, I did buy
Yikes.
something. I bought something on Black Friday. I bought new boots, so there we go.
Okay. You got the one thing. I was about to say, you did it absolutely wrong, Nameless, if you weren't getting
Yeah,
any deals at all.
Dude, every place had deals, but like, I'm broke, so I can't be buying stuff,
That's the way it goes sometimes. That's the way it goes. Let's jump into this, though, because we've got a lot of things to talk about. I know, Nameless, you're super excited to talk about the opening stuff when it comes to drama things with Mutex, but preseason takes as a whole, whether it be biggest storylines from individual players, early rivals because of it in teams, or, maybe even better, I'm kind of more interested in this from your perspective, Anthony, if you have a chance for it. Is this offseason maybe more dramatic or weird compared to previous ones?
So I think this is probably the most dramatic offseason because of like just all the big shifts in like the future of competitive Call of Duty. Like you have like Optic players not an Optic anymore, which is
Right.
obviously insane. And then you have these huge overhauls of like team brands that are just like gone now. And like you had 100 Thieves last year who were dominant. They're just no longer in the scene. It's just a lot of change, which I think with that change comes drama. So I'd say this is probably the most dramatic offseason we've ever had. And, it's also been kind of boring. Like it's longer than usual. And, a lot of people are kind of waiting for like an update that might not happen and stuff. So it's
Right.
created a lot of drama. And I mean, it's a huge shift in the culture of Call of Duty. Like we franchised, right? Like this is completely different, something we've never done before. And, it's brand new. And with something new comes drama. So I think that's sort of like that shift in Call of Duty has started a lot of drama between the players.
Well, I also think to that point, kind of like since we've never had an off season like this before, it was kind of like how players maybe banded together before they signed to teams versus how other people thought it might play out. It was less kind of a free for all and more, folks reaching out to each other in pairs of 2s or 3s and then approaching the teams and kind of doing things like that. But I mean, yeah, it's kind of the unknown, panicky sort of like we don't really know what's happening that I think, Ant, to your point, kind of makes people behave a little differently, I guess, because this whole thing is unknown, right? Like no one had the first off season into franchising, so
Right.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think depending on your stock, if you will, some folks were a little more stressed than others, obviously.
The biggest
and
thing
it's
that's
just like
kind of caught my eye was, when Overwatch went from not having the Overwatch League into Season 1, it felt so much more neat and in line. It was like, all right, this entire team's going to get picked up. That entire team's going to get picked up. Half of this contender's team and half of that contender's team are going to get picked up. And this season, it just feels like it's just all about old friendships, old relationships, things like that. Is that kind of what you took away from it as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's different. I feel like they're both franchised, so you can compare the model, etc. But like, you can't really compare the scene because we have a lot of history, right? Like, we have 10 plus years of Call of Duty
Right.
under our belt and Call of Duty esports in full seasons, like full entire, MLG seasons and
Right.
COD World League seasons. So there's history there. Overwatch was brand new, and these teams obviously some of them are doing well in whatever online tournaments or online things that they had. I'm not super familiar with it. I do just know that it was new, and that's obviously a completely different shift than what we had. So like going into the year, people know who play well, who've been playing well over the last few years, and who can play from Call of Duty to Call of Duty, and you can kind of gauge like each org can gauge how much to pay certain players. So that also like changed the landscape of Call of Duty because most of the teams were getting paid the same amount. Like each player was getting paid the same amount prior to this year. Like now you have players on teams making like 100% more or double the amount of some other players on teams, which is like different. So that could have aided the drama a little bit as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you have like a decade worth of history between people, and then kind of like a moment like this to really shake all that up, obviously, with things like, E United's not around anymore, 100 Thieves isn't around anymore, Optic Gaming has split apart, kind of. It's been interesting to watch, obviously, because I'm like newer to the scene as well. Like, obviously, I don't know the history or the context nearly as well as, say, like Nameless does, that Ant does. But it's been interesting to watch kind of some of the storylines between like the personal relationships between some of
Yeah.
the players. Like, obviously, Scump and Crim would be a big one, but also like you're seeing Scraps and Wuskin, the twins, play together for the first time ever. But then on the flip side, you're seeing the other set of twins in Pristini and Arcides splitting apart for the first time. So there's been a lot of kind of like little sub stories that I've found to be really interesting.
Yeah, every team has their own little story, right? Every team has a reason to have a chip on their shoulder, and every team has like a story behind them. And that's what's different about COD and Overwatch when you compare the two is like there's history with every team and a lot of history at that. Hell, even the goddamn subs have a lot of history to their names. Like, you know
Right.
what I mean? So it's just like different. It's just completely different. You know, that's what's special about Call of Duty is the personalities that we have and the history behind the players.
So with this all kind of coming to fruition, whether it be because of, Crim or Scump kind of splitting apart, or the entire Optic Gaming squad essentially splitting apart for some reasons or another, but would you say that going into this next season that this is going to provide more rivalry than storied histories that were there between like your Optic and phases like in times past?
All right, I guess I'll go first. Yeah, I think there will be way more rivalries now. I think you have, and there's so many stories as well. Like you have, I don't want to go through all of them, but like just to name a few, like you have Crim and Clay back together, teaming with some
Right.
young guns, and then you have Crim versus Scump now. Like when's the last time we saw Crim versus Scump? Like it was so long ago, like Ghost. And you have, I mean, Aches is still around, so you have
Yep.
Aches going up against these guys still. Like it just, the talent being spread out like this is allows there to be more stories. Like you have
For sure. Yeah.
Optic moving away from the Optic players like Formal and Scump and Damon and Crim. None of those guys are on Optic Gaming. And you have some of their biggest enemies on that team now, like JCap, who's beat these guys for championships, Slasher as well, Kenny, like TJ and Dash, you're just on the team. There's so many stories this year. The Young Gun Phase team, like this is probably the most, storylines we've ever had. And like when the season begins, it's only going to get better once these guys actually start playing against each other.
Well, and of course, you have obviously the inherent LA. You were kind of touching on that, Ant. Like, obviously, you
Yeah.
have Los Angeles Gorillas and Los Angeles Optic Gaming. So it is going to be that similar play between obviously how Overwatch League has their two LA teams. But I'm hoping at least within that rivalry, obviously you will have the Aches versus, Optic Gaming, the name, if you will, but also Aches and Slasher going up against each other. But it'll be interesting to see kind of how the LA rivalry works in Call of Duty, which obviously has
Yeah.
a lot louder personalities
Well, I don't think
than
the
in
Gorillas have
Overwatch
even
League.
played yet, so
No, I
Yeah.
don't think they have either. But I'm hoping that there will be a lot of I guess good content coming out of that as well. I think the two teams can
we
play
get
it really well.
some Clippers Lakers action.
There you
Yeah, well,
go.
I mean, exactly. Like I think they can do it well because there's a lot of personalities on both sides of those teams.
Out of all the
Yeah.
rivalries that you might be building up in your minds or kind of the community's talking about, which individual rivalry are you guys most excited for coming into the early parts of this next season?
Ooh.
I really just think it's NRG and Optic. Like as
Yeah.
much as I want to say
That's where
Crim
I'm at
Scump,
too.
yeah, as
Yeah.
much as I want to say Crim Scump, that's for me that's the one.
Yeah, I think NRG, like on a brand, like a team basis, I totally agree. NRG Optic
Well,
for sure.
let me call him Huntsman. Let me.
Yeah, Huntsman. For like an individual, I do definitely lean more toward. Obviously, I want to see like Crim and Scump go at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be like kind of the names and love from Optic against this new branded Optic, and kind of see how that goes down.
I also like one of these funnier ones, like the Rocker and Ultra starting
I was about to ask the Battle for
rivalries.
the North. Is that one defeating your
They're just
fancy
like-
at all?
They're just like I'm not worried about either of them as
Yeah.
threat to like win, but like I just think it's a funny rivalry, like the battle in the North. I like it a lot.
What I do hope actually, and I don't know how well this will play because a lot of the personalities on the Paris team are a little more muted, if you will. But I would love if there was a good rivalry between, the London team and the Paris team. I think they could have something really good for their region there. And obviously, you've got people like Scraps, who's more than willing to talk smack. I just wonder if the Paris team will kind of banter back, or if they'll be a little more demure about the whole thing.
I mean, they do have Kismet, who talks a lot of shit.
True,
True.
true.
They're kind of quiet. Like those, like the, Phantoms is super quiet. Zed, Brezzy, I think I've said 2 words to that dude, and then their Mind Freak guys are like quiet as hell too. So I think they'll be pretty quiet. They'll be just like an underdog.
I was kind of surprised that we weren't getting as many, I guess, as, I don't know how much you guys looked at the first half of the season schedule, how some of what I thought were going to be marquee matchups weren't actually happening at like homestand locations. Like London and Paris aren't even playing in London. They're playing the weekend after at Atlanta, which seemed a little bit strange to me.
Weird,
yeah, I was kind of hoping that we were going to get some of that because I was in the same boat that you were, Katie, when it came down to the regionalization of those two teams. The kind of battle for Europe would have been really fun to have there.
Well, yeah, I mean the shit talking, if you will, between the London and Paris team and the crowds, especially.
Especially
I would
in London.
love to see the London crowds chants at the Paris team. Would be amazing.
Would be insanely awesome.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know. Some of those decisions have been a little what is it for the first set? I think, and in Minnesota, they're not even playing the Rocker, right?
What, Minnesota? I mean, I'm looking at it right now. Rocker play Gorillas, and then they play Mutineers.
Florida, and they play Toronto on Sunday.
They play Ultra. Yeah, they do.
Okay.
I just like the matchups aren't like the biggest thing for me. I think it's just like the matches that they're ending the days with on some of these. Like for example, in Minnesota, we end the weekend with New York versus Florida. Like I just don't get it. Like each team plays once that day. Well, I guess Optic plays twice, but like why would you not end that day with like Huntsman versus Optic? That's a crazy match. Or it's Minnesota event, Rocker versus Ultra.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is very confusing. But other than that, like in terms of like the schedule, we don't like the other half could have these matches that we're talking about. So
sure.
We don't really know. But
it was the same way. I wish we went down to the Atlanta homestand this last year, and Atlanta, I think at that point they played Toronto as like a North versus South thing, but they played like second of 4 matches instead of last, which was a little bit strange there. I kind of had the same thought that you did when it came down to like how that kind of functions, but I'm sure there's a rhyme and a reason for it. Ant, you want to talk next? I know you were pretty excited to at least hit on it a little bit. I know you're going to be talking about it all on the podcast later,
if we were going to talk about it all, because I was looking at the points. But yeah, we could talk about it a little bit. I mean, that situation was just crazy, dude. Like he turns his stream on accident, starts just spewing off like some crazy, like just disrespectful stuff, and then just goes back and forth. Like that's where it just becomes tough with like how you pick your substitute players up, right? Because there's the search and destroy community we know can be super toxic, and I just honestly want to say like I think Empire honestly handled it well. I saw a lot of the AMP community. The AMP community was going at them like everybody does this, yada yada yada, whatever. But like, okay, say there are people that do that, right? And it's not on social media. Once you join a team, you need to stop doing that. Like, I don't know what else to say about it. Like, it's just like once you join that team, whatever skeletons you have in your closet, end it and become a better person for the sake of your team. Because now you just put them in a situation where they don't have a sub, right? So I think whatever hate has been coming his way, he deserves it, man. That was extremely disrespectful.
Well, I mean, the thing is, too, is there has to be a moment where you realize that you're no longer simply representing yourself. When you agree to join a team, whether as a sub, an analyst, as a starter, whatever, you are the moment you sign that contract, you are representing that brand.
That city.
Yes, exactly. That city, that brand, those investors. So as a part of that, you need to be mindful of yourself. Obviously he accidentally went live, but still you need to be mindful of yourself and how you represent yourself, because it's not just you anymore. It's not just you and your brand. It is this brand that has brought you on. And obviously your words and your actions and your reactions to things clearly will have significant repercussions at that point. And I don't think some of these people necessarily understand kind of that real world mechanic.
Yeah. And like as far as like the community goes, Like I know people are like roasting the crap out of him and stuff like that, but like he's paid his price, right? Like he's off the team. He lost that bag, right? He's apologized a few times, and he's now doing like he raised some money for charity, donated his own money. So
Mhm.
I do appreciate his efforts to like sort of fix his image in the community. But like, man, did he need a PR guy to help him out throughout this last
Badly,
couple of
yeah.
weeks? So bad.
Well, it's like when in doubt, just don't tweet. Just
Yeah.
don't. Just don't. If you're ever chat, this goes for any part of your life ever, not just about a job. If you are ever emotionally charged, whatever you want to text, whatever you want to tweet, just don't.
I
Just don't.
always tweet when I'm
You
pissed.
you can write it
Yep.
out and then delete it, write it in a notepad, whatever. Just don't. If you are emotionally, I guess compromised, just don't do it.
I just tweet out cryptic shit. I'll just tweet out like a gif of like me knocking somebody out. Like, should have seen that one coming, buddy. Like just crazy cryptic shit. Nobody knows what it means, but in my mind, I know. That's all that matters.
Now we've got the
Yeah,
Da Vinci Code going for Nameless's Twitter.
I
Yeah,
think
dude.
hopefully,
You guys will catch
take it
it.
as a live and learn sort of a moment. But obviously that's a tough situation. So
I mean,
he's young, dude.
Yeah, I would say he's young, and I just hope that for him it's a lesson learned, and he's got still an opportunity down the road at some point in time to make up ground for what he's been able to do. Because it's no doubt that he's got a lot of influence when it comes to the competitive Call of Duty community in certain ways, and it would be a shame for him to absolutely have committed career suicide just in a simple couple of days. Outside of that,
adapted to the times, man. Like back in the day, sorry to cut you off. Back in the day, I mean, I know some people now who are huge in esports in different places who used to say stuff way crazier than that, man. But it was
right.
it was before Twitter and stuff. So like, and those guys were around his age back then. So I definitely know that community can be toxic. I mean, but he just needed to understand the situation that he was in and not use those harmful words in a professional situation. Just ever. You
100%.
shouldn't use those words ever, but like you definitely should eliminate that from your language as soon as you join a team.
Yeah, and stuff like that's, if that's a part of your lexicon, like that's just breaking a habit. That's something that's certainly worth working on. Obviously, you can tell because unfortunately he lost a job over it. But yeah, I mean, just hopefully a live and learn moment. But
for sure.
An unfortunately tough one to experience.
Very tough one, especially coming in on the ground floor with something that is as big as the CDL is, obviously posing to be coming up. Just before we jumped out, Nameless, you were talking about you were watching a couple of scrims. I'm not sure how much you guys have been able to watch so far when it comes to either pro teams or amateur teams. But who's impressing you guys so far early on? Obviously, Dallas and Chicago are doing well by record. I put quotations around that because how much does that really mean? We'll talk about that, I'm sure, at some length. But who's kind of catching your eye so far as, early favorites potentially going into the season?
Man, I think they're nasty. I was watching.
They're fast.
They're fast. I think they're going to be very good. I was watching.
Do you think that'll work against them at any point, Ant?
No, I think that it's going to be pretty good. Because there's like proximity spawns in this game, so like you pretty much just spawn on your teammates. So like if you're quick and like you can get near the hill quick, like you're gonna get your teammates to spawn there. So like I actually think being fast in this game is like actually pretty good. And like once you get set up in a hill, it's like so hard to break it. So I think that team will be pretty good. And the one thing is like you're probably gonna be able to guarantee searches in this game, like as the time goes on, like especially if the dead silence gets fixed, or gets changed to how I think it should be.
Sure.
And I think they're gonna be very good at that. So I like that team a lot. And just when I watched them play, dude, I was watching Simp stream, maybe it was like a week ago. And like it seemed like he was barely even trying, and they were just destroying Chicago, like beating the hell out of them. And I was just sitting there like, damn, this team is gonna be nasty. So yeah, I'd say Chicago, them, and Empire.
Something, and obviously I know that Optic has not had the best record, and there's kind of been some memes, if you will, and jokes spawning from that. But I wonder, and Ant, maybe you can kind of play off of this, but I wonder if we're going to see something from them that was similar to how 100 Thieves was at the beginning of last year. Like you looked at that roster, it looks, well, not necessarily the roster change, but the idea that it was like they looked so strong on paper and they really struggled. And yes, those roster changes occurred. So maybe that would happen, but the potential for them to kind of have everything click and fall into place
Well,
and see
yeah.
kind of that ascension. But I don't know. I'm just spitballing. I don't know what you think about
For
that
me, the
potential
way
scenario.
I approach this is gonna be a completely different viewpoint of a lot of like fans and
Mhm.
people. The way I look at it is like I honestly don't give a shit about any of these scrims. Just being honest, like I really don't give a fuck about any of these scrims unless you're like straight up dominating like Empire. Like they're clearly gonna be solid. But like we need to wait till the season begins, like in the first couple of weeks to really know who's gonna be good. Like
Well, and so many things could still
they're not
change
even
with
in
the
their
maps, with the spawns,
yeah.
with everything.
Absolutely, with the
They're
core
not
game
even
itself,
in
right?
their they're not even in their office yet playing next to each other yet. Like
Right.
they're they're gonna be in the office. Like these teams are gonna be in their offices. They're gonna finish scrimming. They're gonna go over film. Like you can make more progress in 2 weeks doing that than you can just online scrimming or raging from different places with shit internet. You know what I mean? So I would just give it time. I don't care about these scrims. And I was just when I was breaking down the face team, I was going off their roster. Why I think they'll be good.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the way I approach it though, because I've seen this happen multiple times before year starts. Hell, I was on the best online team in Ghost before the year started, and then we got 12th at the first event.
Right.
Yeah, it's just interesting because I mean, obviously, we're like you mentioned, it's a very long off season with no Vegas happening. Soon, what it would be soon as far as how it happened last year, but also just the fact that teams are kind of moving to different locations. I think London still hasn't officially scribbed yet, or maybe they've only done a couple of run throughs here or there, but they just moved kind of next door to me in Charlotte, so they're not
Yeah.
too far away. But that's going to be interesting to see. But do you put any consideration at all as far as some of the Path to Pro teams that are scrimming against these CDL squads, like Pentagram's team with UYU, Parasite Squad, Exotic Gunjar, and those guys? Is that going to give them maybe a leg up in the challenger scene, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they're putting in a ton of work. I remember the other day, I was talking to this was like right before Thanksgiving. I was talking to Parasite, and like when that update came in, he was looking for like all the pro teams were like we're not scrimming right now until this like death camp thing or whatever it's fixed, and he was like trying to find anybody to scrim against just to play it and like test it out. So he's been Parasite's always proactive in the community about like when games drops, like glitches and stuff like that, and figuring it out. I think in this game he's done a pretty good job so far, especially like his roster's been grinding. So I actually like that team a lot for the challenger scene.
Yeah, interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens. With obviously the season is still a little bit away, but when it comes down to that, traveling is going to be another kind of element that we have yet to really kind of see before. I know you guys are going to be right there with them. So what were I want to get your take first, and from a player's perspective. We talked about this last week with Marky B and Nubsy and some of the guys that were on the cast the last time we talked about the CDL travel schedule. But what do you think are going to be some of the biggest tests when it comes to traveling as much as some of these squads are going to have to?
Like in terms of being a competitor, I'd say staying focused week to week. For me, even when we would have like a month or two where we'd have like 3 or 4 events, when I get back from events, like I'd like to take like a day or two off sometimes and like just kind of reset. Like you go to an event and you're like, okay, we're gonna just get top 4 at this event, and then you end up getting like ninth. You kind of don't want to talk to your team for a little bit. You know what I mean? Like you kind of just want to stay away from them. But like
Decompress,
now,
yeah.
yeah. So for the first time ever in Call of Duty, like, because it's gonna be different than the Pro League last year, right? Like those guys didn't care as much about those matches. I feel like it's like this year they're going to, and I think that consistent, just intense matches that they're gonna have week to week is gonna there's gonna be some, pissed off players, man. There's gonna be a lot of arguments. So whoever can like keep their head on straight and actually progress and not get mad at each other, I think they'll or tired of each other as well.
Mhm.
I think they'll be the better teams, right? Like it's gonna be hard, man. I know for a fact, like I would be so mad. Like say we go weekend to weekend, right? You can realistically you can go 0-5 over the course of 2 weekends, right?
Yep.
You have a bad two
Mhm.
weeks, you can go 0-5. Somebody gets sick or something, that could destroy your team for like months. That's just how it goes. So I'm interested to see how it plays out, man. It's a lot of variables we haven't had before.
Well, then it's like, kind of your personal scheduling, right? Like, I know that a lot of folks in the community have fairly wild sleep schedules that range all over the place. So, I mean, it's literally also just basic things of like self care. Are you going to have a good managed sleeping schedule? Are you going to have a good routine for getting to the airports and kind of like the times you're going to bed at the hotels and all of those things that kind of just reset your clock and get you in the right headspace? Or are we going to see people who are awake until like 7 a.m.? And I mean, you can't do that, right? You can't be awake till 7 a.m. and be rolling out of bed at, 4 p.m.
These guys are gonna, it's on them. They're getting paid so much money now, so there's no excuse. But it's gonna be hard, man. It's a shock to like their current lives. Like they're scrimming earlier than they ever have. They're gonna be traveling more than they ever have, and they're gonna be Paris one weekend, and they might be off, and then they'll be in Dallas, then LA, and then Chicago. Like it's a lot of travel, dude. And for people with like some people have wives and pets and kids and stuff. Like it's just tough. Like some people have to deal with more, so it's gonna be really hard, man. But it's the price you pay to do what you love, and I'm sure the veterans will be able to figure it out, and with the help of the veterans, some of these younger guys will have to figure it out. But everybody's got to learn something, so it's completely new.
That was kind of
for me. It's gonna be tough.
I was about to ask, because Katie, you were away from home throughout the majority of the year last year,
Yeah.
So I mean, what kind of came with the struggles of that? The whole factor of a lot of these players, you look at maybe that phase roster, most young kids that just went pro, now they're going to be away from home for the first time. It's not like the same college experience that most people would have at 18. You're playing in a professional esport.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough. Like a lot of that travel will absolutely for folks who aren't used to it. That kind of travel can absolutely put a huge strain on your relationships, maybe with a significant other, maybe with your friends, maybe with your family. I know for me, obviously for some of those players, it'll be different because their friends obviously know what they do. But for me, it was tough when I traveled because a lot of my friends back home didn't quite get why I was gone for so long. And you get the problem of when you come back home, people want to see you, they want to hang out. And to Ant's point, you might just want to decompress and you might not want to talk to anyone. And so you can kind of get some of those conflicts going on behind the scenes. But I think the biggest part of it is simply having good discipline. Like figure out how you want to structure your weeks. Like a lot of these players may not have a lot of structure in their lives. And I think it'll make things infinitely easier if they try to structure things as much as possible instead of kind of just winging it. But yeah, a lot of travel can definitely take its toll.
Listen, dude,
I think it's tough for
there's
anyone.
gonna be some burnout for sure.
Oh yeah,
100%.
Absolutely, there will be.
These guys are gonna come home and scrim 8 hours a day, dude. That shit is not fun. Scrimming is not fun. It's legit work. I hated scrimming. Passion, dude. I despised it towards the last few years.
Yeah.
That shit is not fun, dude. There's gonna be some players burning out. I wouldn't be surprised if towards halfway through the season we see some players taking a weekend off and a substitute filling in and going to play or something, dude. Because there's gonna be some burnout. 100%.
Well, yeah,
we
it's
saw
like
it in Overwatch, bro. We saw people
we saw it
burn
with tons of players of the Overwatch, especially after the first season. Players that weren't even there for their followers or their interactions. You take away your defrans, your XQCs. There were actual professional players that were absolutely cashed out halfway through the season of season 1.
And that's on the orgs, right? I'm gonna be looking at these orgs to be proactive with that in that regard, like making sure these players are on point, because you talk to a player, he's gonna be, I want to play every single match. I want to be on every single scrim. I want to do this, and that. It's gonna be on the coaches and the GMs and these orgs to make sure that their players aren't burning out. Because
and mental health is so incredibly important, right?
Yeah, absolutely, it is.
In those Overwatch League, we've seen the twit longers. We've seen all these things where these players, even League of Legends or any other sport, these players who are just like, it's too much. It's just too much.
It is
and maybe it's not necessarily physical, but maybe it's just a mental toll. So I totally agree. And keep an eye on these teams to make sure, are you keeping tabs? Are you keeping track? Are you checking up with your players? Are you making sure that, not just physically, but mentally, how are you doing with such a rigorous, weeks upon weeks long schedule?
Yeah, it's wild. It's funny. I think it was Richard Lewis who was talking about how Team Liquid had played in the ECS finals of one night in Counter-Strike and then had to get on a flight an hour later to go play in another qualifier across the country. That's the epitome of, scheduling gone wrong. Now, I don't know what your guys' expectations were before the schedule came out, but I know a lot of the pros were thinking that you were going to have, 6 teams would go to this location, the other 6 teams would go to the next location in week 2, and then you kind of flip back and forth for a while. That's not at all what we're going to be getting. We got teams who are going to be going from Atlanta to Paris to back to New York in 3-week spans. Do you think that the schedule just arbitrarily might just be too much based on the demand that we're seeing?
I think it's going to be tough. I mean, I look at even like, it's hard to compare, but I look at like NBA schedule and like half their games are played at home and sometimes it's like back-to-back home games. And when they go play a game, it's like one day. I mean, these guys are playing entire weekends. So like half their week is like going to be spent on the road. So, I mean, they're getting paid a lot of money though. So with that comes, the schedule and I'm sure there's a reason Activision has it like this. It's a lot crammed into a pretty short time, but
Right.
I think some of these 3-day weekends are going to be taxing on these players.
Yeah.
They have to fly in for media days and stuff too, I think. So
Mhm.
it's going to be tough, man. We'll see. I mean,
Well, it's
this is
also
all a test this year.
right.
So.
And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but tacking on to kind of the test, it's iterating, right? Like
Yeah.
Activision, CDL, they're going to iterate on these things. Like no one ever gets something perfect the very first time they do it. They're following the path that they think is going to be the best for what we're doing for year number 1. And they are going to tweak things and change things and modify things as they go, because obviously you can't predict exactly what's going to work and what's not going to work.
Oh, for
so
sure.
I imagine, they'll be very mindful of all the things that we've been talking about with the players, the schedules, the burnout, and everything else.
Yeah, and I think I might have to go nearly every week, so I'll be
Good
burnt
luck.
out by week
Good
4
luck
or
with that
5.
diet, Ant.
Yeah, dude. These guys
Airport
got
food.
me.
There you go. Have fun with that one.
Bro.
That's wild scenes. No, it's going to be interesting. And, that is one of the biggest things when it comes down to the league as a whole, is that there have been constant adjustments. At least, if we were to just take even the smallest of picture of what's been going on at the Overwatch League. But do you feel like the organizations that we're seeing as far as the teams as a whole have enough in place to maybe support, when it comes to things like, we'll say, diet or mental health? That was the biggest thing that we saw from season 1 to season 2 with the Overwatch League, was the support staff hires that were there. And of course, we don't know the exact workings of what's going on behind the scenes. But do you think that's more of an important role than maybe some of these orgs are maybe bargained for when they first bought in?
Yeah, they're definitely gonna have to do that. That's something we'll probably develop over time. I know these guys have the resources, right? Like they're a franchise team. They definitely have the resources. Just they're doing a lot right now. Like all these teams are trying to figure out what content they're gonna do. Like they just finished getting their teams. Like this all happened really fast. So I think maybe midway through the season we'll see some of that stuff start to develop. But some of the other teams, like Fuel or not Fuel, Dallas and LA Optic and the teams that have been in Overwatch and stuff like that, they definitely have the resources already to be doing this type of thing. So it's gonna have to take somebody to take that leap and announce it and start doing it, and then I think a lot of teams will follow suit. That tends to be what happens.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's some teams that I expect more from in that regard, because they have already had the time with Overwatch League, for example,
And
to
experience
figure.
it.
Yes, exactly. Like again, you say, you have Dallas, you have both of the LA teams in the Gladiators and the Valiant of the Overwatch League side, and then of course the Optic and the Gorillas of the CDL side. You have these teams who have had seasons worth of time to figure this out in Overwatch League. And they can kind of be ones potentially to set an example for best standards for CDL in, not everything's transferable. Not everything is really relatable between these two leagues, but in terms of, whether it's the support staff for mental health, whether it's the support staff for physical health, whether it's the support staff for food and anything else, like they obviously have a better idea of what works and what doesn't. So right. I would expect to see them being ahead of the curve on things like this.
Fair enough. It's going to be interesting to see, I think, to say the least. But I think a lot of what we're going to be talking about this weekend, and what we kind of framed up initially, was the fact that it's roster time. Florida finally announced. Can we get just a very small, polite golf clap? CDL Intel, obviously, gave us that, 2.5 months ago or so. But the announcement was good. I just want to get your guys' overall takes. I have no idea what they were waiting for.
Dude,
Perhaps.
can people cut the bullshit? Can they just give us an explanation of what they were waiting for the whole time? The
I have
wait
no
is
idea.
over. They should literally just be open and let us know what they were waiting for. But either way, it's a solid roster. I like it. I'm happy for the guys, but it was just the worst announcement ever. Not even close. It was so late and everybody knew it.
Yeah, that was something. It's you can be fashionably late and then you can just be late.
Yeah.
And I think this kind of swung more into the late.
Well, all they did, dude, like, this is the way I look at it. All they did was like eliminate all early possible fans they could have gotten, like from the early
Right.
season. Like, if you're following this, if like right when the teams are announcing, you picked your team already, right? Unless you're like a weird super mega fan of one of the players on there,
Uh-huh.
like you've picked a team already. So like that's why I just think it was so dumb for them to wait this long. And obviously, I don't know the details behind it. But either way, I'm sure there's a way they could have expedited it at least like a couple weeks earlier. But whatever. Solid roster. The org did a good job at building their team at least.
But I want to know, okay, and this has kind of been a question I've wondered about, but like for someone like, maybe the mocks or the pristinis of the world, are you worried at all about kind of how emotions could get out of hand on a team like
Um,
that? Obviously, like we've seen, something like playoffs with mocks last year, and
oh
then we
yeah.
can see how Pristini can get very emotional about things. Are you worried about that at all for them?
Uh, yep, yeah, probably a little bit, honestly. Persini's a pretty emotional dude, and he doesn't have his brother now to like calm him down. So that's something to definitely look out for this year. I didn't even honestly think about that until you just said it. But yeah, so that'd be the one player I'd worry about emotionally on that team. Mox is a pretty disciplined dude, so I think he'll be all right. He does get kind of sad sometimes, but rightfully so, man. When they lost, like they were like a top 3 team, so I kind of understand like his reaction there.
Right.
But the rest of those guys, like Frosty, is as emotionless as it gets. That dude might as well be
Yeah,
a
Skies
robot.
as well.
Yeah.
So
Really
there's some
quiet.
balance.
Yeah, Havoc might just piss people off and get them angry, but it might be just what they need. So,
Hmm.
and they've teamed together, Havoc and Mox, obviously, so
Right.
they know each other. I think those guys are all gel pretty well, and I think it's an opportunity for Frosty to excel because he has Mox and Skies now to kind of like play discipline around him, and Pristini to fly in front of him. So, I think we'll see the best Frosty we've ever seen this year.
What's your thoughts on Ogre 2 leading up that team as head coach?
The GOAT, man. I don't know how much he knows about COD, but I know his work ethic is second to none. So I'm very excited to see what he can do, man. I got nothing but respect for
Yeah.
Tom. That dude's a beast, man. I think he'll figure it out pretty quickly on how COD works and how rosters make up and the personalities. Like, I mean, he's been on teams for years, right? He's teamed with so many different people as well. Like, he knows how players react to certain things, and he knows what it takes to be the best of the best of the best. So I think that's a win for them is getting Ogre too. I think that
Yeah.
was a massive win for the Mutineers.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to go
Content.
backwards a little bit here. Was the fact that you were talking about building up a fandom early and maybe missing an opportunity there. How about the LA Gorillas? They've posted on their Twitter maybe 10 times. And as I looked over to
They're
it, the
tripping.
last time they posted was November 7th.
They are tripping, dude. What are they doing? I don't like. You have to be putting content out. Like, dude, these teams are already putting out videos and stuff. Like,
Right.
right, there's nothing else to do right now. Put out videos, gain
Wait,
some fans.
and how did you feel about the logo announcement?
For gorillas. You're my sunflower. I was thinking about the fucking Spider-Man movie, dude. It looks just like the chick. It looks
What
just
is
like
her
her.
name? Yeah, what is her name? I can't
I
remember.
forgot, dude.
I don't know.
No, I think I was more so like I almost thought for a second that they had like accidentally tweeted it out.
So, okay,
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
didn't want to bring this out because I didn't know how you guys were going to react. But if we're going to go down the branding train, I thought the exact same thing. I was trading messages back and forth with Nick from COD Game PD. He's like, but the LA Gladiators retweeted it. Like, this has to be real.
Wait, when you're talking about this tweet, like their first picture, it's like
Their
hoods up.
Yeah.
their first picture.
Yeah, dude, they're tripping with that. I don't know what's going on there. So
I mean, I don't know. They might obviously whatever is happening behind the scenes, they might just be kind of further behind than all of the other teams in structurally kind of getting everything set up. So
yeah,
who knows what's going on there? But I
I
think
just don't
they
understand
can.
it.
I don't understand it either.
I think that obviously, hopefully, it's only uphill from here. Like clearly, you can do a lot better than you are.
So their last tweet was November 8th. Like they didn't even tweet out like Happy Thanksgiving. Like what
Nothing.
the hell? Like, you're doing a disservice to your early fans. Like you have 11.3 thousand followers. Like if half of those people are fans of your team, like there's no content. Like there's just nothing. So they're doing a bad job, man. They need to figure it out.
The most
Like, who's gonna?
surprising
Why would you buy a ticket if you don't even like if the team's not tweeting anything?
The most surprising thing to me is the fact that it's owned by Kroenke, who owned like all of LA. I mean,
Yeah.
it's I don't know. I was most blown away by that because even like I don't know how much you guys follow along with the Overwatch, but the Gladiators do a really good job on their social media.
Yeah, they do.
Like
They
do an incredible job like incorporating their fans. I think they were one of like the first organizations to like really kind of build up like local like watch parties and things like that. It was definitely a little bit surprising for me. But on that same topic, what are some of the other maybe announcements that either caught your eye for good or maybe bad reasons?
I loved everything about. Well, I'm biased because it's my home team, but everything they did with the Surge.
That was good.
I love the name. I think it's absolutely fabulous. I think they kind of everything about their reveal, the teasers, everything else. I thought they did a really, really good job. But I gotta give it up. I mean, Empire, I thought knocked it out of the park with how they did their announcements, how they did the lead up videos, kind of the culmination video. I thought they did a fantastic job with that. So props to them.
I think Empire's done a good job, but I actually think Huntsman has done the best job out of everybody. Like they've done these like meet series with like Formal and Scump that have like
Yeah,
been pretty
yeah, yeah.
dope,
Yeah,
man.
they're
Like,
cool. They're really good.
It's creative, and then they did like the Founders hoodie or whatever thing they did, which was like that was pretty sick. Like the thing Hex was pushing. I actually wish I got one of those. I should have tried to get one. And then they like yeah, like they did it with like most of their players where like meet the players and stuff. Like I
I
think
love
that they've
stuff like
done
that. I think it's always, yeah, I agree.
a great job. And then like Hex obviously being like one of the head guys over there, Huntsman, he's been pushing out a lot of content as well. Where we're not really seeing like any of these like head guys of the teams like come out and put out content. Like we're seeing Hastro, he's done a good job of like doing the tours of the facility. You know, everybody has their own personality in the way that they do it. But I mean, obviously Hex, man, he's just gonna be ahead of that curve. But I just wonder why no other teams like try to emulate that. Like go and do that. Like if you run one of these teams, if you're like the Hex of that team, you know, like get this stuff done. Like it's not hard. You put a camera on for 10 minutes and have the player talk about his life. Like
Yeah.
that's how you become a fan of people, right? You know. So I think they've done the best. And I don't think it's. I think in a close second, it's Empire.
Yeah, I do completely agree with the fact that Chicago has done a much better job giving kind of the behind the scenes personal access to players, whereas Empire had a lot of good hype in all of their initial announcements and videos, but they didn't necessarily peel back a ton of layers on each individual person.
Yeah.
And I think to that aspect, yes, Chicago has done a fantastic job of telling you a little bit more about each individual player and why you should like them as a person individually, and kind of allows you to stack them all up as a whole.
Yeah.
But no,
I mean, they've
I agree.
already
Chicago's
dropped
done a good job.
Higher merch, like sick
Yeah,
merch.
Right.
that
I was about
people
to say
want.
their merch game is by far better than just about everybody else's that's out there right now. Outside of them putting a logo on a T-shirt, it feels like a lot of the teams have kind of used that as a we have it, so here, be happy.
I mean, both Dallas and Chicago, I think, in that regard with the merch, have done a very good job.
What are your guys' thoughts on the Anbox merchandise? I hadn't known anything
they're
about
killing-
Anbox.
Actually, I forgot about them. They're doing a decent.
They're
job
killing
as
it.
well.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
true. So here's something that's interesting to me, because when New York Excelsior NYXL first came out with their logos and everything, year one of Overwatch League, I hated it. I hated everything about it. And it's grown on me so much now.
I'm
like
the
now I
same
like
way.
it a lot. Like NYXL, I love the logo. And so I kind of tried to take that approach with the subliners. I'm like, you know what?
So
I didn't like it at first, but I have a feeling it's probably going to grow on me if they do the same kind of branding work they did with the Excelsior.
It's
I
already
still hate
happened. It's already happened with me because I was the same
And
way.
like, I still hate it. Nah.
When I
like
first saw
Anbox,
that logo,
but
I thought
their
it was some like random trademark thing. I didn't realize it was gonna be like the main brand, and I was like, what?
I
But-
like the logo more than the name, honestly.
I just like how NYSL sounds, but
Exactly.
logo can
The way
kick
that they've
rocks.
been able to use like an identity behind all, like, I don't know if you guys have followed along with like what kind of graphics they've pushed, or like the little kind of like they had like a Happy Halloween push that they had, like a little 30-second like animated video. Like the way they're incorporating like their style to everything is actually like really, really impressive. Like from an aesthetic standpoint, I'm actually really enjoying what the NYSL has been able to do, just because, like you mentioned, I was the same way with the New York Excelsior. Hated everything about it besides the team name, because I thought it was cool, state motto. The subliners, I was like, what? But they've been killing it when it comes to an identity on their style. It's been pretty cool.
Yeah. And their Twitter's hilarious. I was just like taking a scroll through it. Like whoever's running their socials like doing a good job. That
Well, that's what
Hastro
they
tweet was
do.
funny.
That really what stands out to me too. It's like not necessarily. It doesn't have to be the like big hefty content, but like, is your Twitter game good? Like, are your one-off tweets funny? Like that makes a huge difference because you remember those things. You remember
Absolutely
those sassy replies. You remember the sassy retweets. And so I think, yeah, some like subliners have definitely been doing a much better job than teams like, say, I don't know, the Gorillas, for example, who have been pretty much silent.
Interesting thought process. What would you say though beyond that? You know, I personally, announcement video wise, I was actually like super, like I got like chills like watching the London Royal Ravens one. I didn't expect that at all, but I don't know if you guys remember that video at all. But
one with like the old dude,
the older guy's voice, like the whole
Raven.
dude. I thought it was cool. I don't know. I got chills. Maybe I'm weird. Maybe I'm tripping. But
I wanted to.
Cool.
I was cringing watching that.
All right, we got.
That is funny. The ones that
I know
kind
people
of
liked
make
it
you go
though.
like, as opposed to like if it hypes you up or if it makes you kind of cringe. I don't know. I think that depends more on the right. I think that depends more on the viewer, right? Because it kind of made you cringe, but someone else obviously was like, that was kind of hype. So
people liked it. I didn't like it. I don't know. I just didn't like. I don't like their name, dude. The Royal Ravens.
I would have preferred just like Ravens.
Yeah, no. There's like some copyright stuff. I think. I don't know.
Sure, with Baltimore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, no, the Royal Ravens, I think, what did they do? Someone tweeted out something. It was like to use the word royal for anything in like British, you have to get like special approval to use royal.
Really?
Yeah. Someone was tweeting that out. Like, don't, I'm like 90% positive. But people were saying, yeah, they have to get approval
to find
like,
this
use the
video
royal.
so I can watch it again.
Maybe your second time around.
Dude, like this Jerd video was ass. There, I just watched it, like, mind the gap between the train and the platform, and then it just shows Jared like, what were they doing? Dude, they had to have fired the initial guy that was running this for sure.
Really?
Dude. They had to have, because their first couple tweets were terrible. Do you guys remember their first announcements?
I absolutely do, because it was like all the individual player videos were like really strangely done, and then all of the graphics were like, they felt really like artificially manufactured, like it was just a bunch of things put on top of each other.
Yeah, it was weird, man. I'm going through right now. Yeah, I don't know. It's like whoever's running their Twitter account literally is just tweeting random shit.
Okay, but can I say, like, does anyone else not get like Nightwing vibes from their logo?
Kinda.
What? I mean, like, their logo reminds me of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like,
oh,
really?
that one. Okay, I actually see the Shields much more than I see the Nightwing one.
Oh, I don't know. It always made me think of like the old school Teen Titans Nightwing outfit from like the old Cartoon Network.
I don't even know what that looks like, but
look
up S.H.I.E.L.D. from Marvel. That's what it looks
like. That's actually a good comparison. What did you guys think about the Toronto reveal with the hugs and kisses and kill him with kindness? Did you get on the meme boat?
There's literally billions of them.
They did. They did well. I like that they had a huge party with Nav and all that stuff for their hometown. That's
right.
Sick. So
that was dope.
I agree. That was really cool.
And the pictures and stuff they dropped were cool. They dropped a T-shirt. Like they did everything decent. Like they had all the guys there. Like I thought they did a good job, man. I can't complain about Toronto's announcement. I liked it, and it was early on too. So I think they had to do well with that though, because they announced an underwhelming roster.
Right.
So that's just gotta be on point.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. Everything they did with that launch was excellent. So good job to them.
Getting into the actual rosters themselves, and we'll kind of let this be one of our wrap-up points here. As far as who do you guys think did it best when it comes to picking up the right talent, you know, when it comes to the players, maybe even if you want to consider the coaching staff. I think I've got at least an idea as far as who both of you guys are going to say, but I want to hear it from you. Who do you guys think did it the best out of anybody out there? Who do you think had the best offseason moves?
Man, I don't know. It's tough, man. I think I wouldn't say there's a simple the best, but you know, FaZe, Optic, yeah, like those guys, like I put them all like kind of in the same area. FaZe, Optic, you know, Empire. I wouldn't even say Empire did the best, but just because they're doing well now.
And they're
At
taking
first,
chances on two kids that hadn't been tested
Yeah,
before. That's why I
yeah,
was going to say they're probably not near the top as far
yeah,
as doing it best for me, because they took a chance and it's paying
yeah.
off right now. But
I mean, that's just like risk. Right? It's like playing roulette. So I wouldn't
right.
say they did it the best. Um, in hindsight's 2020. So yeah, I mean, going into the season, I feel like it's hard not to say Optic. Like they have like the best players in the last few years. I think if we, the game isn't out yet and we go by all the rosters, I think that they did probably the best job, like just forming the best team on paper.
Katie, who took your eye?
I mean, I feel like I kind of have to agree with Ant on that point for Chicago. And like, if you're just looking, on paper, it looks extremely solid. Also, I would say like on paper, you look at maybe Optic and you're like, all right, that's a ton of talent, but will they be able to click with each other? I don't know. But no, I mean, again, I don't want to just kind of repeat off of Ant, but Chicago has a lot of talent. You can't ignore it.
I mean, Chicago also did a good job in regard to like they built a nasty roster that's going to have a ton of fans. Like their stadium's going to be filled.
Mhm.
Like I think, I mean, there's different ways to approach it. I think London actually did a very good job because like they secured European players, right? Like what if they just like didn't go hard enough to get those guys and you have scraps on a different team, right? So like there's different ways to look at it, I guess, and that's a huge win for the London team. Like getting an all European roster is
I think
huge
so
for
too.
them.
Yeah.
It's like I think that that's an absolute win, right? Like they got an all European roster to represent them, and we know London events are lit. It's like that just gives them like that, and they got all good players. It's not like they just like got Europeans for the sake of having Europeans. They
Yeah.
got all good players, right? And they have like a legend as one of their coaches too, in Joe. So like I think that's an absolute win, right? Like for what they were trying to do, they accomplished that. So I put them right up there with like Optic and stuff for what they were trying to do.
I'm glad you brought up the whole London thing, because I was really happy to see that roster come together, especially with Scraps and Weskin being able to play together since probably the first time that they even got into competitive. But yeah, I agree. This is the top of the EU talent pool, I think, just generally speaking. On the opposite side of the coin, who do you think did it worst?
Paris for
Paris.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad we're all agreeing with that one.
Gorillas as well.
Yeah.
I think that they just like I don't know, man. I don't even know what process they went into it with, but they were like, I do know like behind the scenes what was going on, and they were like one of the last teams to start to negotiate with players. Like they weren't ready early. So they started to do it later than most of the teams, and it left them in situations where they were kind of like pigeonholed. They needed to get players locked down, and I ended up getting that team. So for waiting, they made a decent roster for waiting so long to start negotiations.
But they were way behind.
Way behind, yeah, and they
Everyone
put themselves in
else.
a situation where they were forced to pay at that point too because they were so late.
Right.
So like they overpaid a lot of players that probably shouldn't be getting as much, as compared to some of the other players in the scene. So good thing for them, but I think that I don't think that roster is going to be that good.
Yeah,
But,
I mean,
it could surprise me.
I would say them, and everything about Paris kind of underwhelmed me, unfortunately. So.
Now, and I know that you in one of the last podcasts, you and Pac went back and forth about who you starting from that Paris roster. So we're going to put a pause on you answering this question. Katie, you're coach of Paris.
Oh God!
Who are you starting?
Paris is in trouble already. If I'm the coach, we're just gonna throw that out there right now. This is already off to a bad start.
I had to like have a list of the players up because there's literally 10 of them. I remember what mine was, though, I think.
Wait, I know. I'm pulling up. Wait, I have to pull up the whole. Hold on. Let me pull up the whole ass roster right now. I mean, well, so wait, who would I start?
Who would you start? Who's your starting 5 out of the 7?
Oh God, well, let me know. I mean, Kismet. I don't know. It's
wait, on Paris?
Yeah, on Paris.
Oh, I thought we were doing Toronto. I thought you were talking about
Paris. I mean, if I had to, okay, this is obviously from my opinion, which will be less informed than say Ant. But I don't know. I look at like Kismet, probably Phantoms. I didn't even know from that top 7. Like those two, I don't know. I'm kind of iffy on Dens, but I don't know. Maybe them, Brezzy. Shocks and Zed. I'm not totally sure. I mean,
I would never hire Katie as my coach.
well, that's what it's so right. I mean, obviously, I'm going to be the least informed on this. The only two that I would lean toward heavily would be like Kismet and Phantoms, but beyond
Yeah,
that,
that's good.
Those
I
are my
don't
top.
have, like,
Those are my top
yeah,
two for
beyond
sure.
that, I don't
Yeah, that's my top
necessarily
two
have
as well.
the knowledge base to like really select from the rest of them. But yeah, I mean, Kismet and Phantoms for
Well, Brezi's got to be the star of the team, so he's got to start because he's from France.
He's the French guy. I wouldn't be
Right.
surprised to see him kind of interchange though. Like
Nah,
honestly,
dude. You gotta make him a star, man. You gotta put him in the spotlight and work with him because he's good enough to be there. Like if he was clear cut worse than them, I'd say that. But like I think you invest your chips into him being the star, right, of this team. That's what I would do, honestly, personally. I'd probably I'd probably go Kismet, Phantoms, Brezzy, Shocks, and maybe Dens.
Hey,
But
that was essentially what I said.
yeah.
Hey.
I would not like Zed is good, but I don't know. I don't know if I'd start off with like I'd want to give like Shocks and Dens a go around. I think Shocks is pretty good.
How much
And I
did
could
you
just
get? Did
trust
you get a
him.
chance to watch Luca play much last year outside of the PLQ?
No, I mean
No.
some of I did the the Game Fuel open bracket thing, and he was in a lot of those, so decent amount. He was solid throughout. Like I thought he was a pretty good player. I think he still needs like path to pro or challengers, excuse me, experience to
Sure.
like really develop. I think like one more year because he's what is he 18 now?
Yeah,
Like,
he's young. He had just
super young.
I think he was just eligible last year in Black Ops 4 because he hadn't played at all at anything official through World War II, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
So like he has last year experience and like it's not really that much experience at that. Although he did do great for his first year, and like I just
Great.
don't know how he's gonna be good, how he's gonna be in this game because like a lot of people can be one hit wonders.
Mhm.
So like I think he needs one more year to develop and like see how he can progress from title to title if he even gets better from title to title. And then we'll see what he's truly capable of the year after this.
And have you ever seen like indications, like indicators that make you think someone's more of a one-hit wonder than kind of a player with a lot more longevity? Is there anything you've ever noticed that you're like, probably kind of these X factors that make me think that this might be your flash pan moment?
I mean, it's on a game to game basis. Like if a player has been playing for years and has never been good, and then like one meta comes out and he's just disgusting at that game, like clearly I look at him like he's a one hit wonder, like just how it is.
Mhm.
Like when there's certain exploits in games that some players can like get really good at. Like in last year in Black Ops 4, like there's different specialists and stuff, right? Like that you could be like super good with, like slam and grapple. Like last year, somebody who mastered grapple, like that's not even it's not even like a thing at all. Like
Right.
not even close in this game. So there could be like some different ways to adapt that some players can't adapt to in this game, and we see it all the time. So yeah, there's things to look out for, but it's on a game to game basis, I'd say.
It's interesting because it's one of those things that casting all the stuff with CMG, I've had a lot of time to kind of look at players like Illy and Shoxy, who's up and coming, and some of these other guys that have been sitting kind of in that middle ground where like they're doing well with their open bracket placements, but they're just kind of not being able to break through the top 16, stuff like that. And now all of a sudden you're seeing some of these guys get picked up after they made their world championships last year. Like, do you think Simp like hit his storyline and that Flash is more of just like not a one-hit wonder, but like just a golden child of COD when it comes down to it? Like,
Nah, he's nasty, dude, because he was like destroying in S&D tournaments for years,
sure.
and also like playing variant tournaments and winning them. Like it's completely different, right? Like he was like actually destroying, and he was the best player. Like it wasn't like he was. It wasn't like he was just nasty at an event. Like he was like the best player at like MVP. So it's just different, I guess. Like when you look at a player like him, I guess like a player you could look at and potentially say he could be a one hit wonder is like in ASIM, right? Like that's my boy. I like him a lot, but like I gotta see him play this game a little bit because looking at him, like he's a player I would look at last year and be like, it's gonna be tough for him to play like that in the next game because he was just nasty with grapple. So like that's kind of what I look at, right? Like if you can be consistently great throughout the year, then you'll probably be good. But
Interesting.
if you have like random events where you're just destroying, I don't know.
Before we wrap this up, just for anyone who's out there in the chat, if you're listening on Spotify, Google Play, or iTunes, of course, we do stream these live on Twitch every Monday. But beyond that, all of you guys that are in the Twitch chat right now, if you guys have any questions for any of the three of us or anything we've talked about, or maybe you missed some things you want us to go back to, feel free to let us know in the chat right now. We'll get to those at the end. Before we get to those questions and answers, though, for you guys, I want to put you all in the hot seat a little bit here. Early predictions, end of the year. I know, way too early. I don't even know why I'm doing this, but I'm doing it. Who do you think are going to be your top three, the three that are sitting quite right in the middle, and then your bottom three end of the year?
Oh, God.
You're welcome.
All right. Katie, you go first.
Wait, why? Shit. All right. Okay. Top three. Okay. I mean, this is clearly going to be super biased based off of like the off-season information. I mean, top three, I guess I'd want to say maybe like Chicago. God. Probably, I mean, Empire, if Shotzi and Illy like really show up. I don't know my third. I mean, you know what? F it. I'm going to be biased. I'm going to say the Surge. Let's get it, Seattle Surge. I love you guys. So I'll go Chicago, Dallas, and Surge for my top three. Bottom three, potentially Paris, Mutineers, Paris, Miami, and I don't know, maybe Gorillas. I don't know.
And who you got?
Top three, I go Chicago, Optic, FaZe. Bottom three, I go Paris, Gorillas, and I don't even know, man. It's like so tough to just say somebody's gonna be solidified bottom three. Ultra, probably, honestly.
That was my bottom three as well. I think on my top three though, I've got FaZe up there, I've got Optic up there, and I actually think Seattle could be a top three squad. It's a lot of experience.
The only thing that worries me about them is like they had a couple dads in their squad and like married men and stuff. Like it's gonna be kind of tough, taxing on the season, but they are very mature and that that's a lot of travel for those guys, man. I don't know. We'll see.
That is true. Like obviously,
that plays a factor, dude. I'm telling you.
Some of the people on that team are either have kids or are expecting. So that's a lot to keep in mind. That's very true.
Who do you got sitting in the middle? That's like not quite bad, not quite good. I know this is kind of an easier one thread, but who do you think is going to sit right in the mediocrity level?
I think New York has potential to be a top three team.
Minnesota.
I think New York has the potential as well. I just wonder how well they're going to get together. Yeah.
Minnesota for me, and I know a lot of people think that roster sucks. I think they're going to be a straight up middle of the pack team. They're going to be a threat to the top teams, and they're going to be consistent and be middle of the pack team. So them, I actually think the Surge are in the same spot as NYSL where they can be a top three team, but I'm gonna just say they're probably gonna be middle of the pack.
But they might
they'll be upper echelon of the mid pack though, right? Like they'll beat those teams at times. But
I think so too.
Who else? What other teams am I forgetting?
I got London. London in there.
London might be in that same space.
There's a lot of good teams.
There's a lot of really good teams. Yeah, there's absolutely, and I think you bring up the most important.
Great, and who will just be good.
Right, and that's the biggest thing is because you hit it on the head when it came down to the fact that some of these teams are going to take games, sets off of what we consider to be like maybe the elite. Even if we're completely wrong on who our top three are, there's probably 8-9 teams that could all beat each other, no problem.
Yep.
It's going to be really fun to watch. But I got London sitting in the middle. I'm interested to see what Revan's going to be able to do with that New York squad because I think he was
a unit, dude. Their coaching.
They really do. They really do.
JP is next level. Trust me, dude. I can't gas him up enough. How many times he's bailed me out of somewhere where I just go blank up there and he just goes, and they're 1 in 10 hard point. I'm like, oh, they're 1 in 10 hard point.
Oh my God, he knows everything. No, seriously.
He's like a cyborg robot.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely like the amount of times we would hit the button and be like, JP, we need answers. And he's like, oh, boop, doop, 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 here you go. And I'm like, what? All right. No, he's so good.
They should have gave him the super max, dude.
Interesting ideas coming through. I'm interested because, like what Revan was able to eventually do with that last Evil Geniuses team was like literally fractions of a second from being incredible. I mean, they very well could have been that team in winners finals instead of United, but obviously, things go wrong in the moment. But It just kind of felt bad because I think it took him just too long to get the team that he wanted in Black Ops 4. And now it feels like he's going into this year with the team that he wants to kind of coach.
I am, though. I'm super excited about Crowder with
Oh, absolutely. He's the right guy for that young roster too. He's the absolute right guy for that roster.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see what he does with all of
okay, some questions and answers coming at us. Let's go ahead and hit these as we go here. A couple are just kind of open-ended by the looks of it, so we'll just kind of throw them up to everybody here. First one that came through was, what are some of the top players, teams in the amateur scene this year that you see potentially breaking into the pro scene next year? Ooh, that's an interesting question. Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting because this is another topic of conversation. We'll kind of tangentially answer this one. There's likely going to be expansion teams going into season 2 of the CDL. So do you think that there are individual players, or let's say that you're an expansion owner looking to buy into next year? Are you looking for individuals, or are you looking for a full team going through the challengers year?
I'd probably be looking for individuals for multiple teams. Rarely is there like a full AM team I'd want to pick up. But yeah, I mean, AM questions are gonna be tough for me to answer until the season begins, right? Because you just don't know until those guys
really
get
don't.
on land and start playing, dude. There are like question marks to the absolute max. So I tend to like stray away from answering those type of questions until that shit starts.
Katie, anyone that you kind of kept your eye on when it came to maybe
Oh,
someone
no,
at
I'm
chance?
diddling the hell out of Ant's answer.
I mean, I think the easiest option is to say someone like Pentagram, but it's just going to be interesting to see what his team is going to be able to do when it comes down to them playing on land. Because, you know, I'll be completely candid. You know, Pentagram's kind of a homie. Me and him get along really well. Got a chance to cast him and meet him at Indianapolis, but you know, I think the way that he kind of handled the offseason wasn't exactly great, you know, when it came down to...
He was good last year, man.
He was great last year.
Things, and he was always in the finals, so he was good. We'll see going into this year, man. Like, you gotta prove that shit on land. Like, now that your team's like good online, like, do that shit on land, man. People notice.
Absolutely would. Yeah, I think that's going to be one of those things that we'll see pretty quickly at Minnesota, who's excelling and who's not when it comes to the path to pro. And I think more importantly, and you know, maybe this is a conversation point best sidebarred, but you know, do you kind of hope, looking at the path to pro scene, that it's going to hopefully encourage more teams to stick together more than just one tournament?
With the path to pro things,
yeah, because that's been like the biggest obstacle, it feels like, for the
AM community. 100%, dude. They never stick together. They never like stay as a team and learn and improve. Like, and you know, we saw like teams do that last year. Like, well, I'll just use an example from the pro scene. Like, we saw Heretics stick together and they were getting better and better, and they made that change and they were ass, right? Like, in the AM scene, it's like players change every single like week, it feels like, throughout the last few years of COD. Like, they're just changing so often. So I think them sticking together like will help just players develop more. Like, how the hell are you supposed to improve as a player when you're just starting out, when you're on a new team every week, right? Like,
right, exactly. Especially with 5v5, where team play is arguably more important than individual play.
Yeah, man. Like, if it, like, for me, like, it was totally different when I was coming up, because you know, like, you could change rosters and stuff, and you scrim, and you'd play a bunch of tournaments, and you just go to the next, you know, LAN. But like, it was just different back then. Now, though, like, you need to get better as an individual. Like, you need to be on a team that can learn the meta together and play together, so you can identify yourself. You can't identify yourself on how you want to approach Call of Duty, you're never going to be able to get better.
Yeah.
And it just holds them back as a whole, the whole community.
Interesting thought processes. It should get kind of all your takes. Start here with Katie. This question coming through: what are some of the things the CDL you think could do to get the same kind of viewership numbers, or at least in the ballpark, as some of the other major esports titles that are out there?
Oh, that is a great question. And I'm sure the CDL is very, very much so aware of these things already. I have actually talked to people about these things too, but I want to see the in-client support that we see in games like League of Legends. I want to see the gimmicks, the giveaways, the notifications, the pop-ups, the incorporation of everything about LOL Sports into the actual Call of Duty client. I want to be able to get on and see that there's a challenge, that if you watch the match that's playing right now, and if you watch a match in the next 24 hours, you get this thing. Or, you know, watch a certain amount of matches, and like Overwatch League does, you get a skin for your team or a camo or whatever. I really want to see the complete overhaul of the client that you see in things like Overwatch League and League of Legends that will encourage and bring the esports side of things to the faces of all of the, all of the casual Call of Duty players who maybe either aren't aware or don't necessarily care about esports. You put it as a constant blip on their radar within the client itself, I think will go a very, very long way.
Lit.
That's a good answer. I like that. 10 points from the French judge on that answer. We love that. No,
Also
incorporation.
camos.
Yeah, camos would be great. The biggest thing is, like, when you look at Call of Duty, is the fact that it's one of the largest selling titles year to year, every single year, and I would be willing to wager that more than 75% of the people that play Call of Duty have no idea the CDL exists. I think that's the first obstacle that...
Marketing efforts, all that shit.
Yeah.
I would give advice, but I have a business email on my Twitter, and if they want to pay me a consulting fee, I can go and get some advice. But
There you go.
until then, I'll just keep it to myself.
We love that.
And they have a lot of guys getting big salaries that are wearing suits and stuff, and I'm just wearing like an old Evil Geniuses t-shirt right now, chilling. So if they want to, give me a fraction of those things, I'll come in there and help them out. But for now, I'm just gonna keep talking about COD, doing my job.
We love that. We love that energy for sure.
Yeah.
Personal note, in game of your own, favorite weapon that you guys personally enjoy using right now?
MP5 stopping power with a silencer. What a glitch.
I enjoy the M4, MP5 close second, but I like the M4.
I'm an M4 guy. So, Katie, have you played around with the 9mm rounds by chance of the M4?
I have not. No.
It's fun to try.
But thanks. No, I have not.
Okay.
But I did.
Stopping power rounds, MP5. That's all you need to know. Just run, destroy.
Yeah.
That's
the truth, though.
I will say that I did do wagers for the first time, and I played tens.
Okay, you went mute.
You went mute there for a second. You have to hit that once more for us.
Oh, did I? No, I was gonna say I started playing wagers for the first time, and I tried for the first time today, and it was traumatizing.
Oh, I feel you.
It's
a whole different world out there.
Traumatizing. So we'll see if I do that ever again.
Well, I'm proud of all of us for not saying the 725 is our favorite weapon to go to, because we would have had to end the show immediately. Which weapon, on the same tune here, which weapon would you buff, nerf, or remove? We'll just pick one just in general.
Honestly, I'd probably buff the Kilo a little bit.
That's what I'm saying. I was about to say the same
or
thing.
The AK, dude. That would be dope.
Have you played around with the AK much, dude? I cannot handle the first 4 bullets of that weapon.
Ass.
It's
Yeah,
hard. It's hard.
Wouldn't it be cool for an AK to be like a weapons?
I'm down with it.
But a lot of people are saying like buff the MP7, like so they can be used as a sub. But I kind of like the MP5 being the sub. Maybe just nerf the side power rounds a little bit. Buff the AK. I'm cool with a 3-weapon meta and then some snipers and some pistols. Cool with that.
Fair enough.
I know it's been nerfed multiple times, but if we could just delete the 725 forever.
Round of applause.
I'd be happy with that.
People's champion. I would say if I were to buff one weapon just slightly, the Kilo was my first, so I'll go to my second, which is the MP7. I would like to see the MP7 get a little bit more love, just because maybe it is just the MP5 is just a little bit too strong. Maybe the MP7 becomes more viable, but I'm in the same boat. A 3-4 weapon meta, I think, would be really fun to watch through, just because situational
100%.
things are awesome. Here's one from our boy Pokemon Panda. The community has been more than vocal about the game and changes that they'd like to see. So what are Nameless's and Katie's things that they'd like to see change?
Dead silence immediately. You guys know I've been talking about this week after week. Dead silence and spawns, bro. Fix those 2 things, valid.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Why am I spawning in
Proximity spawns, that's why.
to bullets in my face?
It's proximity spawns. You just spawn on your teammates.
I know. It makes me want to cry.
We need to fix that. We need to fix sound. I'm not even gonna say anything else. Just fix those. We're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, if you want
I
Nameless's information, just get into his Twitter DMs, and his business email is also there for you to jump into. My biggest thing is
figure it out.
Because spawns are obviously the biggest thing, but there needs to be, I think, a solution for, on top of that, domination for the competitive side of the mode. What do you do when the game is no longer mathematically possible to come back? There needs to be a hard stop, because I will say, after casting about 75 hours worth of lands over the last 2 weeks, I am getting tired of watching 2.5 minutes of just the game is already over. What do you talk about?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think you just gotta mathematically stop. Like that's
Yeah.
Come on, man. Like, like there's no other option. Like it's just gotta stop, dude.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing I'd say about it. Let's finish off with this last one here. If you were to be giving an early nod towards potential rookie of the year, who are you looking at and why?
Oh man, who's even like a rookie? It's gotta be like Illy, right?
You got Illy, you got Shotzi, and that's honestly
Shotzi probably, dude. That
Yeah?
kid's probably gonna be a beast. Yeah, I'm gonna go with him. I'm gonna go against the grain just to piss off the chat.
I mean, that's all. Those are the only two that we have right now.
Yeah, I was like,
So I mean,
the
it's
pool
either
pick
Illy or
from is-
Shotzi.
It's very small. So
Fair enough. I think Shotzi's gonna be nasty at this game too, though. I think that Illy is gonna
He is
bring
nasty.
some of that simp factor, but I think Shotzi's gonna be the guy that people aren't really expecting to have as much of a year that I think he's probably going to.
That kid's about to be a beast, bro.
Yeah.
I didn't believe it. And I've been watching him. Like I was like, he's not gonna be, because I was listening to some of the other pros. I won't say who was talking about him, and I was like, yeah, maybe not, man. I watched him play this game, and he was really good.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that I think is just kind of like that same mindset that like Atlanta has, where they're just flying all over the map. It feels like Shotzi's everywhere all the time. Like, I don't get a chance. I don't. Does he stream? Do you know if he streams?
I just watch him through like Crims and Scum or
That's what I was gonna say. Watching it from Crim and Clayster, it just seems like he's always all over the map, which is nuts.
Yeah.
I don't know. Thank you guys for joining me. I want to get final thoughts though, just on everything as a whole. Katie, just final thoughts from you.
About
anything.
about
Thanksgiving,
CDL,
about life, about the holidays, anything.
No, everything's good. Thank you for having me on the show. It's been a pleasure. But no, I mean, it's holiday season. So get into the spirit. You can officially play Christmas music now because it is after Thanksgiving. We are into December. I hope you all have safe travels and have great time with family and friends coming up. I will be back in LA for stuff in about a week, so I'm excited to see people.
Yeah,
but life is good.
Oh, yeah?
Life is good.
Love
Can't
to hear
complain. Just doing my thing, spending hours and hours streaming pubs.
Yeah, you got the
Don't ask
stream
me
thing
how I
going.
survived that.
The stream's been popping for you.
Yeah, the stream is officially a month old. The support has been crazy. When people would always like, the COD community supports its own and the COD community comes out for folks. And that's been so true. I've been absolutely mind blown by the support I've received. So you can all watch me be horrible in wagers with study. It's been good. It's been good. I can't complain.
Awesome. Nameless, final thoughts from you, my Chicago brethren.
Oh man, life is good. Can't complain. Thank you for having me on. The COD community needs more people to be doing shows like this, so I appreciate you, my brother. Keep it going.
Facts.
It's a good show, man. It's fun.
I appreciate
And
that.
to those of you in the chat, make sure you keep supporting. Much love, everybody.
Much love. And of course, make sure you guys do not only the favor to Katie to follow her stream, but make sure you guys also tune into Nameless in the Codcast, an incredible podcast that you can also find on all of those external links that you would expect to. Google podcast. You guys have it on Spotify too, I think, yeah?
Yeah, we do.
Let's go, baby. We'd love to hear that. That's been episode 4, though, for the Off the Rip. Again, we're trying to do this every single Monday, so hopefully we'll catch you guys next time, same place. I've been IHOLDSHIFT. Hope you guys keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.